That evening, the house was finally quiet. No nurses walking down the corridor, no visitors whispering by his bed, no clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Just the slow ticking of the clock in the hallway and the sound of her own breathing. Anna stood by the large bay window, looking at the lights of the city below. Behind her, in the master bedroom, her husband slept with the shallow, uneven breath of a man who had been ill for a very long time. In the guest room at the end of the corridor, his mother was also asleep, or pretending to be. On the dining table lay a single sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges, signed in a hand Anna knew better than her own name. One small line on that paper had just transformed her from just a caregiver into the only person who would decide what happened to this house. For the first time in years, she was not afraid of mourning. She was waiting for it. Hello, dear friends. I'm Rachel Collins, and this is a new story about revenge and justice. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional life stories. Before the tubes, the hospital beds, and the lawyers, Anna's life had been modest and warm. She was 51, worked as a seamstress from home, and lived with her husband Daniel in his family's old townhouse on the hill. The house was far too big for two people, but Anna loved it because she loved making it feel alive again. Mornings began with the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the soft click of the gas stove, and the rustle of the newspaper Daniel liked to skim before work. While he read, she baked simple things: cinnamon rolls, cheese pastries, apple pie when there were apples on sale. The kitchen was her kingdom. White cabinets a little chipped at the corners, a round wooden table, a vase where she always tried to keep at least one fresh flower. From the window, you could see a small inner courtyard with an old chestnut tree. In summer, the leaves cast moving shadows on the tiled floor. In winter, snow piled on the branches like cotton. Daniel's mother, Margaret, called the house our family residence. She never said their home, only our house. She lived in a luxury apartment across town, but everyone knew that the townhouse was the jewel of her wealth, the place where photos were taken, where holiday dinners were held, where she liked to arrive like a queen in a big dark car. When Anna married Daniel, she did not think about deeds and titles. She came from a small rented flat, where a warm kitchen and a kind word meant more than documents. Margaret welcomed her with a thin, polite smile. "You cook nicely," she said during one of the first dinners. "It's good that Daniel will at least eat properly. Just remember, dear, this house is not about romance. It's heritage." Anna nodded, not quite understanding. In the first years of their marriage, the three of them managed to exist without too much friction. Margaret criticized the curtains, the paint on the walls, the placement of furniture, but she did it with such practiced elegance that it almost sounded like advice. Anna tried to be grateful. She cooked special dishes when Margaret visited, ironed tablecloths until there were no creases, arranged flowers the way she'd seen in magazines. She loved Daniel. He worked long hours in his mother's business, a chain of small clinics, and came home tired, but with enough tenderness left for her. They dreamed of taking a small trip someday, maybe by the sea. They talked about perhaps adopting a child when life became more stable. The house, with its creaks and drafts, felt like a promise. Then Daniel had a stroke. It happened one ordinary Tuesday morning. One moment he was reaching for his tie. The next, he was on the floor, his coffee spilled, his right arm twisted strangely. The ambulance arrived quickly, the hospital even quicker, but from that day on, nothing was the same. He survived, but the man who returned home months later moved slowly, spoke with difficulty, and could no longer walk without help. The house that had once seemed too big now became a maze of obstacles: stairs, thresholds, narrow doorways. Anna spent her days helping him from bed to chair, from chair to bathroom, from bathroom back to bed. She learned how to lift him without hurting his back, how to feed him when his hand shook too much, how to sleep light enough to wake up if he called at night. She also learned something about Margaret. At first, his mother arrived daily, bringing fruit and expensive pastries, demanding detailed updates from doctors and nurses. She sat at her son's bedside, holding his hand, talking about how strong he was. But she never stayed long into the evening. She did not help with bathing him, changing sheets, cleaning up. She did not wipe his forehead during fevers or change wet clothes after bad nights. Whenever Anna asked if she could cover even one night so Anna could sleep, Margaret would say, "You're his wife. You understand. I can't watch him suffer like this." Slowly, all the real work settled, like dust on Anna's shoulders. Months turned into years. Daniel's condition stabilized, but did not truly improve. He could sit in a wheelchair, speak in short sentences, move his left arm. He could not climb stairs alone, shower alone, or manage his medications without help. Anna's life narrowed to the diameter of the house: kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, back. She stitched clothes at night to make extra money, her fingers aching from both sewing and lifting. She learned to exist on 4 hours of sleep, 2 after midnight, 2 in the early morning before Daniel woke. Margaret began to visit less often. At some point, "We must accept reality," she said one afternoon, removing her gloves carefully. "He is not getting better. You need to be strong." "I am trying," Anna replied, pouring tea. The smell of fresh lemon cake filled the kitchen. "He still reacts, still smiles. We do exercises." Margaret waved a manicured hand. "I mean, you must be strong about the big picture. About the house. About the future." Anna frowned. "What about the house?" Margaret sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "This place is too big," she said. "Too expensive to heat, to maintain. For one sick man and his nurse." "Nurse," Anna repeated softly. "Well, what else are you now?" Margaret asked, not unkindly, but with brutal clarity. "Daniel is not a husband anymore in the usual sense. You take care of him, and thank you for that. But you know as well as I do that this is not a marriage. It's a duty. A duty I accepted when I married him," Anna said. Yes, vows and all that," Margaret said impatiently. "But we must also think about finances. I have been covering the property taxes and bigger repairs for years. The clinics are not what they once were. I have to protect what remains of our family's wealth." Anna listened, cold spreading in her chest. "What are you suggesting?" she asked. "I'm suggesting," Margaret replied, "that we sell this house. Buy something smaller, more practical. A good ground floor apartment near a clinic. We can hire professional caregivers. You can visit Daniel every day, and the rest of the money can secure the future." "Whose future?" Anna asked quietly. Margaret's eyes flickered. "The family's, of course. My grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Our name." Anna's gaze shifted to the living room doorway, where Daniel sat in his wheelchair, dozing, a blanket over his knees. "This is his home," she said. "He knows every sound here. The creak of that step, the smell of coffee in the morning. He will be confused in a new place." And she swallowed. "And where exactly would I live in this new arrangement?" Margaret paused, just enough for the answer to become obvious. "You're still young enough to work," she said. "You can rent something, or maybe go back to your relatives. We will, of course, pay you for the care you've given Daniel. I am not heartless. Think of it as compensation. But you must understand, Anna, you are not the owner here. You are his wife. Yes, but this house belongs to our family." Her tone wrapped the words, "our family," around everything that did not include Anna. The conversation ended with polite phrases and cold tea. But the line had been drawn. Over the next months, Margaret's behavior shifted. She began bringing specialists to the house, realtors who walked through the rooms taking notes, architects who measured doorways, financial advisors who murmured about asset liquidity. They would nod politely to Anna, then ask Margaret questions as if Anna were invisible. "We're just evaluating options," Margaret told her when Anna protested. "Nothing is decided. But be realistic. You can't hold on to this house forever like some trophy." "I'm not holding on to a trophy," Anna said. "I'm holding on to my husband's dignity." "Don't be dramatic," Margaret replied. The worst moment came on a winter afternoon, when Anna overheard a conversation between Margaret and one of her friends in the hallway. "You spoil her," the friend said. "Let her go. She's just a caregiver with a ring." Margaret's answer cut deeper than she could have known. "I know," she whispered. "But firing a caregiver who's legally your daughter-in-law is complicated. I'm working on a solution." That night, Anna sat in the kitchen long after the kettle had gone cold, listening to Daniel's labored breathing in the next room. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine being thrown out. A suitcase, a rented room, Daniel's bed empty of her presence. Everything she had built here, the little garden in the yard, the warm kitchen, the routines that kept Daniel sane, could vanish with a signature. Unless something in the story of this house was not what Margaret assumed. The idea came quietly, like a memory surfacing from deep water. Years ago, before the stroke, there had been another difficult moment. Daniel's business had nearly gone under. Margaret had refused to help at first, lecturing him about responsibility. Anna remembered the tension, the late-night arguments, the way Daniel had stared at the ceiling in despair. And then, suddenly, it had all become calmer. Margaret had lent him money. She hadn't let him forget it, of course. Every favor was a chain, but she had done it. The house had not been sold. The crisis had passed. Sitting at the kitchen table now, Anna realized she had never understood the exact conditions of that rescue. Had there been a contract? A loan agreement? Some paper that tied house, business, and family together in a way even Margaret couldn't ignore? With a kind of desperate determination, Anna began to search. She waited until Margaret was out of the house and Daniel was sleeping. Then she went into the small study that had once been Daniel's home office. He rarely used it now. Dust had gathered on the shelves, and a faint smell of old paper filled the air. In the bottom drawer of the heavy desk, under a jumble of cables and outdated manuals, she found a metal cash box. Inside it were old bank statements, faded photographs, and a thin, folded piece of paper labeled in Daniel's handwriting, "Loan Mother." Anna unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten IOU, dated from the year of the business crisis. It stated that Daniel had borrowed a substantial sum from Margaret to cover debts of the clinic chain and that the loan was secured not by the family home, which remains in my sole name for the protection of my wife, but by future profits of the business. At the bottom, both Daniel and Margaret had signed. A notary stamp glowed faintly in purple ink. Anna read the sentence again and again. "The family home, which remains in my sole name for the protection of my wife." She realized she had never seen the new deed after their marriage. She had simply assumed that the house was Margaret's, passed down like a crown. Heart racing, she went to the small safe in the bedroom wardrobe where important papers were kept: passports, insurance, birth certificates. The key still hung on the same hook behind the door, where Daniel had left it years ago. Inside, she found the deed. Her eyes moved down the page, hardly daring to hope. There, under the property description and registry numbers, were the words she had never imagined seeing. Owners: Daniel Roberts and Anna Roberts, joint tenancy. Her name, on the deed. She sank onto the bed, the paper shaking in her hands. Daniel had put her on the title. Quietly, without dramatic speeches, he had made her co-owner. Perhaps he had meant it as a surprise for some anniversary that never came. Perhaps he had simply thought, if something happens to me, she must not end up on the street. Either way, he had trusted her more than his mother, and Margaret either didn't know or had chosen to forget. Anna spent the next week verifying everything. She made copies of the deed and the IOU. She visited a legal aid center on her lunch break one day, speaking to an older lawyer who listened intently as she explained the situation. "Your mother-in-law is correct that she has invested money," he said. "But legally, this house belongs to you and your husband. The IOU even makes it explicit that the house is not collateral. She cannot sell it over your head. What if she pressures Daniel to sign something?" Anna asked. The lawyer looked at her gently. In his condition, any attempt to have him sign over property would raise questions, especially if his doctor can confirm his reduced capacity. And even then, as joint owner, you would have to agree. Without your signature, nothing can happen. Anna felt something straighten inside her, like a spine that had been bent too long. "What should I do?" she asked. "For now, nothing rash," the lawyer advised. "Keep the originals safe. Make copies. If she tries anything, bringing buyers, threatening you, you calmly show her the papers. If necessary, we can send a letter. But the law, in this case, is on your side. Use it not to start a war, but to end one." Anna walked home with the copies in her bag, the weight of them both heavy and strangely comforting. That night, she sat again by the window, watching the city lights, listening to the house breathe. For the first time, she understood that the walls around her were not borrowed. They were hers too. Now it was only a matter of time before Margaret tried once more to move her like a piece of furniture. This time, Anna would not step aside. The opportunity came sooner than she expected. Margaret announced her arrival with the usual call. "I'm coming by tomorrow with some people to look at options. Try to make the house presentable." "People?" Anna asked. "A designer and a potential buyer," Margaret said, as if discussing new curtains. "Just an initial talk. Don't make a fuss." Anna felt her heart pound, but her voice remained steady. "All right," she said. "I'll be here." The next afternoon, the doorbell rang. Two strangers entered, a well-dressed man with a leather folder and a woman with a tape measure around her neck. Margaret breezed in behind them, perfume preceding her like a flag. "This is my son's house," she told them. "We're considering selling. It's time to move him somewhere more practical." The man nodded, looking around. "Lovely bones, could be modernized beautifully. We'll just need to confirm ownership and consents, of course." "Of course," Margaret said. "That won't be a problem." She glanced at Anna as if expecting her to retreat quietly to the kitchen. Instead, Anna crossed the room and placed a neat folder on the coffee table. Perhaps we should all look at the ownership together, she said calmly. To save time later. Margaret frowned. This is not your concern, Anna. You're making our guests uncomfortable. The man opened the folder, curiosity piqued. Inside lay a copy of the deed and the IOU. He skimmed the deed first. I see two owners, he said slowly. Daniel Roberts and Anna Roberts. The room fell still. Margaret's smile froze. That must be an old document, she said quickly. The house has always been in our family name. It is in your family name, Anna said softly. Mine and Daniel's. And this, she tapped the IOU, is the agreement you signed when you lent him money. It specifically states that the house remains in his sole name for the protection of his wife, and later, the deed was updated to include me as owner. Margaret's face drained of color. That was years ago, she said. It doesn't matter now. The important thing, the man interrupted gently, is that any sale would require the consent and signatures of all owners. Without Mrs. Roberts' agreement, I'm afraid I cannot proceed with any negotiations. He closed the folder and stood. I think we should pause this conversation until the family has reached internal understanding. The designer gathered her tape measure, avoiding Margaret's gaze. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving the three of them in the suddenly too big living room. Margaret rounded on Anna. What do you think you're doing? She hissed. Humiliating me in front of strangers? You're here because of me, because I allowed my son to marry you. Don't forget your place. Anna met her eyes, hands no longer shaking. My place, she said quietly, is written on the deed, next to your son's name. Not under yours, not in your pocket, on the deed. You're nothing without this house, Margaret spat. You're just a tired woman with calloused hands. Without us, you'd still be living in a rented room. Maybe, Anna replied, but I would be living honestly. I cared for your son when you couldn't bear to watch him suffer. I washed him, fed him, woke up every night when he called. You call me a caregiver. Maybe that's true, but I am also his wife. And he trusted me more than he trusted you. That trust is written here. She lifted the IOU. Margaret's voice trembled with fury. Do you really think you've won? You think this house will make you happy? You'll be trapped here with a sick man until you die. I have been trapped by your contempt for years, Anna said. The house didn't do that. You did. And today is the day it stops. For a moment, Margaret seemed about to slap her. Then she dropped her hand, grabbed her handbag, and swept toward the door. You will regret this, she said through clenched teeth. I will find another way. Any way that involves this house will meet these papers, Anna replied. And if you try to pressure Daniel in his condition, the law will see that for what it is. Margaret left without another word. Later that evening, Anna sat by Daniel's bed. He looked at her, eyes still intelligent inside a slower body. Mother angry? He asked, words heavy. Anna smiled sadly. A little. He frowned. House okay? She took his hand gently. The house is safe, she said. You made sure of that years ago? Thank you. For the first time in a long while, he smiled fully, a shadow of the man he had once been. Margaret did not give up overnight. There were phone calls, some shouted, some pleading, all variations of the same theme. Think about the future. Think about the family. Think about what you owe us. Anna repeated the same answer each time. I owe Daniel care and loyalty. I owe you nothing. There were attempts to introduce other options, renting out parts of the house, taking loans against it, temporarily transferring control for easier management. Anna politely refused them all, always ready with a copy of the deed and the IOU. Eventually, even Margaret had to accept that, legally, she was trapped by the very documents she had once signed to protect herself, and that her attempts to treat Anna as disposable had failed. Her visits became rare and stiff. She came on holidays with expensive fruit baskets, stayed for exactly 1 hour, spoke mostly about herself, and left early, because it's too painful to see him like this. Anna no longer chased her approval. She greeted her politely, served tea, and then went back to caring for Daniel, whose eyes followed her with a quiet trust. Financially, nothing miraculous happened. There were still bills, repairs, worries, but the constant fear of being thrown out, of losing the one stable piece of her life, faded. She took in a small sewing project for a local boutique, working a few hours while a nurse helped with Daniel. She made the garden in the courtyard bloom again, herbs in pots, flowers along the path. The house, once a stage for Margaret's social performances, became what Anna had always wanted it to be, a home. Years later, after Daniel had finally passed away peacefully in the same bedroom where he had once gotten ready for work, Anna sat on the veranda with a cup of tea, watching the evening light slide down the walls. The house felt different now. Quieter, emptier in some corners, fuller in others. Friends came more often. A neighbor's teenage daughter visited to learn sewing. Sometimes, on weekends, Anna rented out a room to travelers and listened to their stories from faraway places. Margaret, older and frilier, still lived in her luxury apartment. She never forgave Anna in words, but life itself had given her an answer she couldn't escape. That just a caregiver was the one who kept the house standing, paid the bills, held her son's hand at the end, and made sure his last years were lived in dignity. The IOU and the deed remained in the safe, no longer weapons, just reminders. When Anna opened it now, it wasn't to feel power over anyone. It was to remember that love, when it is real, leaves traces not only in hearts but also in decisions, in protections made quietly, in signatures that say, "I trust you." Sometimes she thought of Margaret's words, "You're just a caregiver," and smiled. Yes, she would think. I cared. You tried to turn that into a weakness. In the end, it became my strength. Because revenge, she had learned, does not always mean destroying someone else. Sometimes it means refusing to let them destroy you, and letting the truth, written in ink long ago, stand where their pride once stood. Thank you for listening. Do you think she went too far, or did she simply take back her justice? Share your thoughts in the comments.